everybody. It's the Scene World Podcast. In a minute, we're talking to Jim Drew.
About the Keycap Campaign.
Yes.
That he has started.
One of the many things that he has started. Jim Drew is kind of a
he is like Jim Brain, except that he isn't.
There you go. That's a perfect way to explain who Jim Drew is.
Because the other guy that is active doing tons of things on the Commodore 64 is Jim Brain.
Yes.
And then there's this other guy who's doing tons of things
in
the US.
Still doing stuff really with it? I thought he had kind of slowed down a little bit.
He's still developing Jiffy DOS and stuff. Sure.
Well, I know he has.
In the interview, Jim Drew said that Jim Brain is actually working to figure out how to reverse engineer the super CPU, because that was one of your points you did during the interview.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And as you know, Jim Brain got the rights from CMD for reproducing the software and hardware from them. So, and Jim Drew said that
Commander Kang guy, whoever he was on, whoever he is on eBay, he makes the clones of the FD and HD drives from CMD. I know he was working also, I believe, on reverse engineering the super CPU.
But didn't you say that he got caught using parts that were sent in for repair to produce his new devices?
There was talk of him not sending back people's devices and using the parts from that to build new devices.
Exactly.
But I don't know how much. I don't know what kind of stock to place in that.
It's still a controversy.
Because the people that I have talked to, that from outside of the just in the scene in general that have dealt with him, have said that if you make it, if you buy something from him on eBay, you get what you pay for, and it's a quality product. So I don't know.
Anyway, it's not something I would risk my money for anyway.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where people, people bitch and complain about everything, in the scene. They complain and argue and all that nonsense. It's inevitable. I'm sure somewhere there's someone complaining about us right now.
Well, I actually forgot. Dallas Moore? No. Who was the guy who originally who owned the rights to the same guy that did Wheels? The Geos?
Morris Jones.
No. Morris Rendell.
Morris Rendell, yes, Jones. Where the hell did Jones come from?
No. Morris Rendell, right.
Yeah, Morris
I
Rendell,
was one of the few guys that never had a problem with him, because I called him weekly in his car repair store because I wanted my CMD mouse being returned.
Right, you
harassed him. He never returned it to me. He
Yeah.
never returned it to me after repairing it. I was like, man, you got it now there for 8 months. It's about time you ship it back to me,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you were on his ass about it, and so he eventually, relented and did what he was supposed to do.
Yeah.
A lot of other people don't follow that same,
approach.
Right, and they'll just kind of sit back and wait and complain when they don't get their thing for 5-6 years or ever.
Well, I mean, that was a different time before there was Skype and stuff. So, Fortunately, there were the call-by-call numbers that you would put in front of country codes here in Germany. So you would do sheep calls. Anyway, I still had to pay money for the call. Nowadays, I have a flat rate on Skype. I don't pay money for the call. Anyway, okay. Well, up to the news, I would say. One of the news is from our past guest, David Pleasance, from the Vulture to Vampires book. Is actually turned out so big that he now split it in 2 volumes.
Okay.
One till 94 and one beyond. So now you can pre-order both for £35 each plus package and shipping. You can pre-order them over davidplessens.com. And if you were a Kickstarter, you should check out the last 2 updates from his Kickstarter campaign for a special offer if you're among the Kickstarter pledges.
Okay.
Yeah. That's one bit of news. The other bit of news is that Robin Harper, on his YouTube channel, he made a video explaining the difference between loading with comma-8 and loading with comma-8, comma-1, which I found pretty interesting. Especially, I discussed that with you before, because he loads it with star, and he also explains what the difference is between loading it with a star and loading. Now I don't know what that sign, the character is named in English.
It's a colon.
It's a colon, yeah, colon star. And yeah, the difference actually that the star, or the asterisk, as some people say, is not actually loading the first file on disk, but the last file in memory of the disk drive. And that is what most people don't know. So if you didn't switch off and switch on your 1541.2 again, then it's giving you a loading error because it's looking for the last file from the previous disk inserted. And
is it just the 1541.2, or is it just the original?
No,
41 as well?
It's the same with 1541, but the difference is that the 1541, if you hit the reset line of the C64, it's automatically resetting the disk drive 1541 as well, and the 1541.2 doesn't reset with it.
Okay.
That's the difference. Okay. So if you have a Final Cartridge 3 or an Action Replay or Super Snapshot or a user port or self-built-in reset line button, then it's automatically resetting the 1541 as well.
Okay.
But the 1541 has unfortunately a bug in the operating system. That means if you use the option R for overwriting an already existing file, you could actually destroying the file on the disk instead of overwriting it properly. So they changed some things for the 1541 too. And obviously, on the way of changing the operating system, they also removed the reset line passing through to the 1541 too.
Yeah, right.
So, and interestingly, in most manuals of commercial games and software, it's always printed wrong without the what do you say?
Without the colon, yeah.
Without the colon, right? Yeah. So very, very few people know about this difference. Yeah. Alrighty.
It doesn't have it on this disc.
No, it's taped over. Right.
I just thought I got a couple of original discs, and I thought I would find one that just said load star.
Yeah, it's mostly written on the manual. Very few commercial games had it printed also on the label.
I debate that highly because I used to see that a lot on the labels.
Yeah, but I'm the European market.
Well, yeah, okay, so
probably they did it different on the American market, but on the European market it was not printed on the labels, except if somebody wrote it with a biro or felt tip pointer.
You get a lot of that too. People writing down on the thing. Usually, in the U.S., I don't know how this is elsewhere. They would write it on the envelope.
Well, obviously, that is probably what is under that Space Taxi label.
No, I don't think it is.
Oh, right.
I
Anyway,
was looking, but yeah, writing it on the label, or on the envelope rather, on the envelope, what we do in the U.S.
still bad because it's a Muse envelope. You wouldn't want
Oh
from
yes,
Muse
yeah. If it
software.
was just a blank envelope, that's one thing. But it's still also it's been a better option because you're not putting pressure on the disk.
Right, but people didn't think so far back in the day.
Yeah.
People didn't think at all that those things would be collectible at some point. So nobody cared in the 80s and 90s. Anyway, third bit of news is that the demo scene is now an UNESCO cultural good in Germany.
Oh, hey.
Yeah.
We just talked about that.
Yeah, in a few podcasts back, we spoke to them trying to make a cultural heritage in Germany, Poland, Switzerland, and in France. And now the UNESCO Germany enlisted the demo scene as integral cultural heritage.
Intangible, yes.
Yeah. Oof. Well, and that would be my 3 news already. That's it.
Right there at the bottom of the thing. You see it?
Yeah. Like I said.
Yeah.
That's American. In European.
Although this doesn't say load star. It says load key punch, comma 8, comma 1. So
yeah, okay.
This is one of those budget model games.
I know.
The really
we didn't have key punch in Europe.
Yeah. This is where unfortunately most of my games were key punch.
I know, yeah, you told that story many times in the podcast and even in an article.
Yeah, you get these for like $5 at Toys R Us, and they were crap.
I know. So last but not least, I also want to share that Petro Planas from Caracas, Venezuela, reached recently 300 subscribers. Congratulations, and check out his stuff. Alrighty, well, so I would say let's dig into keycaps.
Wait till I come back. Oh, yeah, okay, we're back. Yes, Jim Drew. We can.
Jim Drew.
Dig into him.
Okay, see ya. So today we are sitting here again, AJ and I, with a new guest, Jim Drew. And you recently have been come into the picture, at least for me as a European, because you have done the second keycaps Indigogo after the first one from Austria fell flat, I would say.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a bit. But first of all, let's learn a bit about yourself, Jim. How did you get in touch with computers and with retro computers in the first place? How did that start for you?
Well, I started tinkering with computers in December of 1977 when my dad, who was friends with the people at Commodore, brought home a PET 2001. So that was a winter CES. He actually got one from there. So I've had a PET since then. I still have the PET. So
really,
yeah, it's kind of my dear to my heart thing. So then I learned to program on it, and my dad was a museum director and curator. So the idea was to use this to take inventory for the museum. And you look at the grand scheme of things, that's an 8K machine with a cassette tape and 1 million items in the museum. Obviously, it wasn't going to work, but it was a great idea at the time. So I learned to program on it and wrote some games and various things, and then it kind of catapulted me into always doing computer software and such. So in about mid-83, late 83, I started working for Commodore in Portland, Oregon, handling educational accounts, getting for schools, for getting 64s, and I guess some of the PET stuff later, in 83, in and out of schools. And I also worked in the service center for Commodore as well. And so I was writing some software there during the same time, and with mostly eBay stuff, and that kind of led on to me leaving and doing a whole bunch of different copy programs and stuff. So I think I did 60 different programs for 64 over the course of a period of time, and then got into the Amiga, and then had to switch to PC. And then about 2001, probably, maybe, I got out completely doing computer stuff. Actually, I spent 5 years traveling the world playing paintball professionally.
Wow,
really?
Developed the electronics for the paintball guns for the industry. So that was my actual job at that point. I was making electronics for the markers. And I did that probably until about 2006 or so. And then I got out of that really. Then I got back into, I'd always been into model airplanes and stuff as a kid. And so I got into the UAV industry in about 2006. And that's what I do still to this day is that. So I developed flight control, guidance control systems for various UAVs, from everything small all the way up to giant size UAV stuff.
So, fascinating.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I am in my history. So it's ironic that I got back into computing, retro computing, in 2012 by accident. I always get emails from people periodically, you have this software, do you have this piece of hardware that you did, and various things like that. And so I tried to be accommodating for where I can, but, I got rid of a lot of stuff, but the reality is that I got rid of that stuff to storage. So I had literally thousands of things from inventory, from the original Utility Limited products. And so I had a lot of stuff. I just didn't want to go get it really, because it was a lot of work to go get it. But in 2012, I got an email from a guy asking if I would provide software for my board that he got on eBay. And I was like, well, I didn't sell a board on eBay. He goes, well, yeah, you did. You're selling them on eBay. It's like, no, I'm not selling them on eBay. So I went and looked at eBay, and there was a company that had knocked off a bunch of my stuff, and they were selling it on eBay. And so I had to send them a letter, and threaten them and all that. And then I started looking into this retro computing scene, quote unquote, and I had no clue what was going on. So once I saw that, I was like, man, I need to get my stuff out of storage now. And so I've been making new products ever since then. So it's kind of my side business that I do. It's not my real day job, but it's something that so, this whole thing with this Keycap campaign, I backed them originally, like everybody else did. I thought that'd be cool. Ideally, what I wanted, especially when the Dallas case came out, when he found the molds, the original 64C, and did the cases for those.
Dallas Moore,
right.
Yes.
So it'd be cool if I had a clear case with clear keycaps. So that was my goal in the whole thing. And just so happens this Indiegogo thing popped up, and I thought, oh, that's brilliant. That's perfectly. That's what I want. And of course, we all know how that kind of went by the wayside.
Well, yeah.
And then I've been bugged by a lot of people in the industry, because I do a lot of products in the UAV industry that use plastic injection parts and all this. So I'm very familiar with the whole process. And I did it also with paintball guns as well. So I've had contact in China for 20 some years now. And so it seemed like, I could do it, but I'm not quite sure if you can actually make a real replica. And I'm not a real big fan of having something that's not perfect. And so I spent, I don't know, you can ask Eric Hill from Amiga Love. He is one that was actually bugging me a lot to get this done. And I kind of worked with him back and forth probably 6 months, maybe, or 8 months before I decided to actually do this. And I just wanted to make sure it could be done right. And so I could post some pictures to you guys in the Discord's little chat thing down here. So you can include these if you want to.
That would be perfect.
I got pictures I've never shown before to anybody of the development process of doing the keycaps and checking to see if it would actually be accurate enough to meet my standards for this. Because it had to be dead on. And you know what? As a person who would purchase this from somebody, I wouldn't want to have something that kind of looked like it. Because you can go buy a keyboard anywhere that kind of looks like it, And so I'll post some pictures in here for you guys to take a look at that I came up with. And it just basically, there's just test photos of various things that I had done. Let's see.
It's interesting that you mentioned that it's all started with Dallas Moore, and you thought like, hey, having fitting keycaps would be perfect, because that is exactly how it happened for me. That's exactly my train of thought. And then I made the mistake of over the months the Indiegogo was going to order like a couple of the keycaps, in different colors and different F keys and whatsoever. And now thinking back, I thought perhaps it would have been smarter to only buy one and see if we actually can put it to the market, So,
yeah, well, I've had really good success with Kickstarter and Indiegogo, campaigns that I've backed. And I thought, well, not a big deal. So I'll back a bunch of these, and so I'm thinking, how many do I need? How many would I use? And in reality, you always want more than you're going to ever use. I thought, it's cool. I'll support, the campaign so it gets funded. And so, yeah, who knew?
Yeah.
So basically, what I did was these are the first thing you need to do when you build a keycap is to build the stem part of it, because I'd have to be able to have a means to adjust the height and figure out the height wise. And ideally, what you want to be able to do is look through the keycap so you can see if things are actually fitting correctly. And so I used a 3D resin printer, and I actually made the stems first, and identical stems, and which was kind of neat because I had some that were broken, which is pretty common for 64 keyboards anyway. So I was able to replace these, but I was able to actually make sure that they fit the original keycap for the stem part, because one of the things you don't want to have happen is you put a keycap on and it pops off.
Right.
And Commodore's keycaps are pretty intricate. I cut one apart and checked it. And so inside of it, there's actually a flange that locks the locking mechanism. And if you take a look at the stem itself, it actually has a little ridge, like a little diamond-shaped ridge on each side of it that actually locks up inside of it, which is why you have to use a keycap puller to get them off. They just don't slide off. And so my biggest fear was, let's not make something that when people put it on, the spring's going to pop the keycap off.
True. True.
So there's a lot of things that you had to think about before even actually making this. Now, the shape-wise, I figured I could probably wing that pretty well with a 3D scanner and then clean it up. And then, which is what I did. There's video of that in the Keycap campaign, how that was done. So I also had Dan Tootle.
Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to throw in this keycap thing that you mentioned. We had this topic once with the guy from Denmark who did his replacement keyboard.
You're talking Mountain Buffalo or something like that.
Mountain Buffalo, exactly. Mountain Buffalo was his name, yeah. And he explained the same thing with Mountain Dew was a drink, I know. No, so Mountain Buffalo explained exactly the thing that you mentioned with the stamps, and the keycaps. So that's actually a big issue there. And interestingly, what most people don't know, that there are two versions of those stamps by Commodore. There are some rare versions.
4 versions.
4 even, okay.
Yeah, there's 4 versions that I found. And so luckily the vast majority of them are the ones that I'm making the keycaps for. And we've actually looked in the campaign, there's a bunch of messages about that. There's links to the websites that show the differences between the different stems that are available. And so they actually made a stem. There's actually a 5th version apparently that I've only seen pictures of. And it's the same stem that the 128 keys use, which is a little tiny stem. So luckily, the vast majority of the 17 million 64s out there use the larger size stem that will work. So I posted some more pictures for this, and you guys are welcome, of course, to include these in whatever you're presenting to people. People not seen these before. So I want to make sure everything looked good. So you can see from the pictures everything that actually they do fit. It's the right height, and there's a lot of things that are critical in that aspect of height-wise. Now, when I was thinking of this originally to do this, talking with Dan and Eric and all these people, one of the things that I wanted to do was make my own keyboard. And that was kind of hush-hush until like about the middle of the campaign. Then I said, okay, here's what I really want to do. I figured that since I've got the top shape, the actual shape of the keycap, the underneath part, because there's 2 separate molds, there's a top part and a bottom part. The bottom part basically is the underside with the stem part, and the top part is a separate of the shape. If you change the bottom part of the mold, you can change the stem. So what I wanted to do is a mechanical keyboard, kind of like the mech board was. But one of the problems with it, of course, is if you've got a 3D printed adapter to go from the Cherry MX switch to a Commodore stem, it's wobbly. It's also height's wrong at that point. There's a lot of problems with that. So I thought, you know what, when I get this made, if I could have a third part of the mold made, a second underpiece, I could have the top part be reused for the new bottom that would fit the Cherry MX switches, and I could adjust the height, accordingly for what I need. And so that's what I have had planned to do all along, is basically have that done, and that would be something I would pay for myself, and then I could make a set of keycaps for a mechanical keyboard, and I would like to actually make a mechanical keyboard that was the right height, like the mech board is.
So perhaps you should work together with this guy from Denmark then, because he has already
that person contacted me, I guess, and then everything went on GitHub or something like that, so it's all open source anyway, I guess. But there's things about that particular project that I don't like. Not so much don't like, I'd say. I would not want to use, because my mechanical keyboard is a lot different than that. It has LEDs for every single one of the keys, first of all. So you'll know when you press the key cap down, and they're RGB LEDs. And there's a computer that actually runs all of that interfaces to the CIA, which is the connector that goes on there. Because the CIA is used strictly for the keyboard, and there's two parallel ports available. And one of the byproducts of having two parallel ports available and a computer in there, especially a computer that's running at 32 megahertz, is that you can offload data to that computer to do something. So if I wanted to do graphics conversions or GCR conversions or something like that, you can send data to the keyboard to get it done and send it back to the keyboard if you want to. And so there's a lot of future things you could do. Literally, there's more memory in the computer than there is in the 64. So you could actually use it for other purposes besides that. But I want to have nice, like scrolling colors on your keyboard and all these strange things you see. Kind of like you look at a PC gaming keyboard. You can see how, one of the things I saw on a PC gaming keyboard I thought was really cool was they've got a keyboard blanker, which is like a screen blanker, where they've got like an image that shows on a screen blanker. The keyboard blanker actually does something while you're not using the keyboard for a period of time. And one of them things is a lightsaber duel. And if you look it up on YouTube, it's an actual lightsaber duel, so you'll see like the lightsabers battling each other, and it's all done on the lights on the keyboard. It's amazing.
Wow.
So when I saw that, that was really kind of like threw me over the edge of wanting to make a keyboard. That would be really cool for 64. So I posted a few more pictures here, and then I'll show you a picture of the actual keyboard thing that I made.
I wonder what the price point is. I think for the one from Denmark, I paid like 159 euros or something. I think.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah, I mean there's a lot of money in tooling, and so you have to amortize the cost of tooling over your product line, obviously, and that was kind of where we were with the Keycap campaign too. So to make the first 1,000 sets, to pay for tooling and the plastic, it was like right at $40,000 US, whatever, done in China, obviously. And so we had to get to that point in the campaign to even pay for it. I actually never thought the campaign would get funded, honestly.
Really?
I thought there was so much bad.
Yeah.
I thought there was so much bad with the original campaign. I figured nobody would ever want to do it. And so I actually printed a set of keycaps myself, and my plan was to either laser them, because I have a laser here too, laser and then fill in the laser part so I could have my own, and just do a set for myself. So I actually have a full set of keys. They're not lasered yet, but I have a full set, obviously, to make sure everything fit in space correctly. And I thought, nothing else, I spent some time, I could do it, for myself. Not a big deal.
Well, I have to tell you a secret. The reason, exactly the skeptical reason was the reason I only ordered 1 and not 5. Because I was like, okay, let's first see if he delivers,
Yeah. Well, there was 2,830 sets or something like that were back. It was ridiculous. I was stunned. So I was thrilled about it. At the same time, I okay, I guess I'm doing this regardless if I like it or not, for sure now. And, but I had such great support from the community, though. I mean, there's like a bunch of guys that really stepped up and said, hey, like Dan Tootle was like huge in this. He provided me Blender data, which he had made, which he had thought the shapes were. And then between that and my scan I thought was accurate because it's a scan of original piece. And I actually looked at Dan's stuff, and Dan had some actual better curvature than the scanner picked up. So I overlaid Dan's data with my data, and I tweaked things, and so it's kind of a hybrid between what we both had gotten. And honestly, it's probably off by maybe a couple thousands here and there, but it's a keycap. I mean, you're not going to notice it ever, side by side. And that's like I posted the picture. You look at them side by side, and they're identical. So to me, that was the biggest thing for me. Is that I wanted to make sure it was right. I don't like to make something that's like sort of close or whatever. So once it got funded and reached the halfway point, it was funded like in 24 hours, something like that. It was ridiculous.
I know. I saw that. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, I guess we're doing this. And so I thought, okay, so then I was really on to this whole doing the keyboard thing. So at that point, I sat down and I finished the keyboard layout, the circuit board layout for it, for the RGB LEDs, where they go and all that stuff. And so then I also needed, ideally, that plate. If you look at the last picture I just sent, there's the plate that the keyboard's electronics, well, basically a circuit board, sits under. It's that big flat plate with all holes for the stems to go through. That's solid black, opaque material, so you can't see through it. So what I really need to do was to make one that would be compatible with that was either open or completely transparent, one of the two. So it's transparent plastic. Either way, it was the same price. I was like, So then I thought, well, maybe just do a mechanical keyboard only. And then people were bugging me saying, no, we really like to have this clear plastic plate too, because we like to have that circuit board. So I ended up making the circuit board so it would work with stock 64 plate. And then you can actually drill the holes if you wanted to for the LEDs to shine through, or a clear one, or my mechanical one. So I made it so that it would actually work with all the different ones. So I don't have to have 50 different SKUs of parts, to lay around the shop to be able to have a part for people to buy.
So just a question: Did I miss something? So you have a second Indiegogo for the keyboard, or did I miss something?
No, it's something I'm doing myself.
Okay, I was just in shock for a second.
On the fact that if the keycaps got funded, then it would really, I could do it at that point, because it would make sense at that point to do it. So it's something that's a CBM stuff product. So that will be out separate from the campaign. So obviously everyone in the campaign will know about it because I can promote it through the campaign, but it'll be something that's totally separate, no funding required for it.
Wonderful. So perhaps when the keycap stuff is sorted out, then we can order keyboards from you as well, perhaps as a combo.
Yep. Yeah, it's a plan is to have completely ready to go keyboards and then have kits as well.
Wow.
Where you can pump them on yourself and such. That way, because the people are crazy. They want different colored keycaps on different locations, and there's it's too much work to try to make a website where you say I want this keycap here and this keycap this color here. So it's better to just sell a kit. You can just put it together however you want to put it together. But if those people that just want one assembled and done, a regular keyboard, traditional keycaps and stuff, I'll have that available as well.
Awesome.
Okay, so let's talk about what's happened to the Keycap campaign.
Yeah, it's interesting because you told me when we chatted before, you said the whole interview will not take longer than 10 minutes, and now we are already talking for half an hour almost. So you see, you have stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I do. So let's see if I can find a couple of pictures in here. I've got a couple pictures of the factory. So the factory that I found, I found a lot of factories in China, and I have a lot of different contacts in China for various things. But I was looking for a company that had experience making keyboards, and that's really what their forte was. And so I found this company, and they actually make keyboards for gaming keyboards for PC, for Asus and some other companies. So they're actually a big company that does it. So that's what they do. So I wanted to make sure that I had some company that had experience in printing, because anybody can make plastic. it's the printing process is really important, especially for accuracy. Because the last thing you want is to have your number one shifted off to the side. It's not where it's supposed to be. Because that would personally drive me nuts if I try to look at the keyboard and it's in the wrong spot, you know. I mean, there's some keys on the 64 keyboard in the wrong spot. They're shifted slightly. And people actually asked me if I was going to correct those. And I thought, no, probably not, because that's the original keyboard, and that's what I want to do. But there are some 64 keyboard keys that are off a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So people don't know that, probably because they're so used to seeing the 64 the way it is for 30 some years. So I found this keyboard company. They sent me pictures, had my people in China go check them out to make sure they're legit. And they have giant machines for plastic injection, 300-ton, 500-ton, and megaton style machines. The pictures, and I need to find them. I'll send you a picture. It's pretty funny. People standing next to the machine, they look like little people, little tiny people, because the machines are so big. And that's the reason why is that they do, I found out in the middle of the campaign, I didn't realize in the beginning when I was talking to people, they not only do the keyboard, they do plastic enclosures for cases and giant things, like things that are many feet in diameter and size-wise, like, garbage buckets and things like this, huge things they make in these machines. And so because that they have these giant machines, they can make, 5,000 face shield masks all at one time in a mold. And so I'm not sure if they voluntarily repurposed their factory or if they were told by their government they're going to be repurposed. But in an instant, everything was off the table for any new orders for anybody, and they were strictly making PPE. That was it.
That makes sense.
They're still making PPE. Yeah, and they're still making PPE right now. So I've contacted them 2 weeks ago. Same thing. They told me all along. They strung me along the whole entire time. Oh no, we can make stuff for you in the fall time. So I'm not sure when fall time is supposed to be. I would think now, but it's obvious that they're not doing it. So that led me to look at other factories. And of course, anybody, like I said, can make plastic. That's not a problem. It's the printing process is the real issue. If you don't have experience with doing dye sublimation or pad printing or UV printing, then I didn't want to use that company. So I found a couple of different companies that can do it. And the argument today has been about the longevity of the keycap when you print it.
Oh, so tell me about it. Tell me about it.
The last one. Okay, well, so if you look at this keyboard I've got here, so this is my current daily use PC keyboard, and you can see I'm missing some letters here.
Yeah.
And so this keyboard is about 6 months old, and it's worn out. Obviously it functions as a keyboard. So this was my big fear. And these keycaps are actually clear coated too. And so this is where I've been with these two factories is like, can you guarantee me that 6 months from now it's not going to look like this? Because I don't want anybody in the 64, after a year or 2 years or whatever, saying, hey, these were junk because, the keys text wore off.
Well, that's actually
so
true.
I've been trying to get pad printing, which lasts longer than dye sub, which is what this was, or UV printing. But UV printing is about 5 times the cost as opposed to a dye sub. But UV printing is impervious to even acetone. The plastic melts before the text would melt. And obviously a double shot mold, which is what the original 64 used, that's really expensive anyway, because that's multiple molds that are interlocked for getting the text actually in a different color plastic. The 64C, I have a couple of those that are worn too, believe it or not, but those were pad printed. And so pad printing was a lot better than dye sub. So this week I have to resolve which of those companies I can use, or I use a third-party company I've got lined up as well, which would mean all the keycaps would come from company either Shenzhen or Dongguan and get shipped to Shanghai, which is a long ways away. And it's across China. And then they have to get printed and then all shipped back. And so if these guys in either Shenzhen or Dongguan can't actually guarantee me this. So we're arguing about this pretty much right at the moment. But the bottom line is very simple for me. I have to get this done and paid for and out of my hair before the end of the year, because I'm personally responsible for the income tax on all that money if I don't get rid of it.
Yeah.
So that's I don't have a choice but to get rid of it. So, but I don't want to rush it to the point where it's garbage. I don't want to have to be released as garbage. But that's why I've been spending all this time since I started researching this again, probably October, September. So it's come time where it's got to get a decision made, because I don't want to be personally responsible for all that money. It's all write-off because it's all going to be spent, and used. So no sense me paying, 25% income tax on $85,000 that actually came in after all the fees.
Wow.
Yeah.
Speaking about the print wearing off, at my workplace, I have a very expensive Cherry keyboard, and it's looking like yours after a year or two. and at home, I actually changed to a cheap Lenovo keyboard, and it's not having this problem whatsoever. So it's not about the price of the keyboard, obviously.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's a process. And I know that, dye sublimation is great. And that's one of the things that this original keyboard manufacturer that I had for doing this campaign, they sent me some really nifty looking keyboard pictures. I need to find those and send them to you. They had one that was an American flag over the entire keyboard. And even the face of the keys was all printed. So the whole entire thing was like doing a wrap in vinyl. It was all a dye sublimation print. It was really cool. And so what I had planned on doing with these people was making a limited run of the Commodore logo or something in the middle, something in the middle of the keyboard that was a picture, but you still have your key tag, which was cool. Yeah. But that's dye sub printing. So that's the stuff that can wear off pretty easily unless you have a clear coat. Now, they had guaranteed me as well, it's not a problem. So if you take a look at a lot of these dye sub keyboards, like the one that's even worn off now, there is a clear coat that's very distinctive over top of a letter P. It would be a little bit wider than the actual text, but you can see it's a clear coat around it. And so you don't really notice it on there. What you don't really want is a big flat area of clear, like a shiny keycap on each one of them, and the rest of the keycaps are almost dull color.
Yeah, right.
So that's why they do the little mask, they call it print mask on it. So they do the mask on it, and I guess if you do enough depth-wise, you can probably clear coat it, effectively. But I've not seen anything done that way. But you might have to take a look at your keyboard and see how they did yours. If it's clear coated or if it's pad printing.
Well,
pad printing process is because it's thicker. You can physically feel the actual text on it.
No, it's not. It's not like that.
Even the old school 64s, I got the 64C. You can see that kind of,
the mask on it.
Yeah, exactly. You see the little area around the keys because it's not, it's printed on top of it.
Right. So I've got a couple of 64Cs that have been worn out, but they were worn out by people that spend way more time on the keyboard than I did on 64. I did all my programming on 64 originally, but I did it on a French pen. So I never wore keyboards out that way. But I got a couple of buddies that actually use the 64C for programming, and they all wore off some of the keys as well.
Yeah, this is my second set. My second set of keys on this machine.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's where we're at in the Keycap campaign right now. So it'll be sent through, and we'll get molds made. And as soon as that process happens, which should be next week or so, I'll send out a survey to all the backers asking what colors they want at that point. Then I can make this big database. I've got a database of people already in it, but I'd be able to add what color keycaps they're getting, what color function keys they're getting, and then sort that out because I have to know in order to order when I actually place the order for all the different colors.
I seriously hope, as being a European, you get your customs and paper invoices right, because that is number one problem for me as being European sometimes. That sellers are not doing the papers correctly at all. And I had cases where the customs here in Germany, in my city, returned it to sender because I couldn't supply the information.
Well,
and that's really
during
bad.
the whole time as well, one of the things that happened in the U.S. is that, we've got this big run on tariffs we're doing. Yeah. Well, about 2 months ago, the plastic tariff kicked in. So there's an actual 25% tariff on any plastic imported from China.
Wow.
So I'd be responsible for 25% of that. So one of the things that I've also done when I'm contacting these factories is sorted out that they can all do logistics for me. So they can actually ship all the non-U.S. orders directly to whatever country they're going to. And that's critical because obviously that's 25% a big chunk of money for, the campaign. Also, it worked out really well because about 65% of all of the keycaps were placed from the U.S. as far as the individual number of orders. But 80% of all the keycaps in the campaign are going to Germany.
Really? So, yeah. So I read that.
Yeah. In Germany, directly from China. I don't have to touch it, which leaves me 20% of the entire bulk order going. Even though it's more orders overall in the U.S., it's still less plastic. So we should be okay for customs wise. I mean, I allowed a 5% margin in the campaign for boo-boos, and I consider this a boo-boo. So there's nothing I can do about it.
May I explain the typical problems, if I may? I mean, sometimes I'm having problems with American sellers that I don't understand why it's a problem in the first place. The issue with Americans is with American sellers is sometimes they are making crazy stuff like putting the invoice outside of the parcel in the pouch, which should be, but not in a separated pouch, but behind the address label. So German customs can't see the invoice, of course, because they are not allowed to reach behind the address label. And I'm like, why do they? Why do they even get the idea to do that? I don't understand.
On our customs forms here, because we do customs all the time here, it's a single sheet and it has an itemized list on the front. So exactly. That would make sense why they would do that.
Exactly,
that shouldn't be a problem for anyone.
But here in Germany and in Norway and a lot of other European countries, there has to be an invoice or a proof of value also attached to the parcel, So and that has to be in a separated pouch. So sometimes I'm telling the sellers what to do, and they are still doing it wrong, and then it's a really mess in a way. And the problem is that when you have to process it afterwards, they are adding fees since five years. So sometimes the fees are higher than the value of what I've ordered. And then I was like, oh, well.
I mark the value of the package at the production cost, not the retail price of it, which is enough. If it gets lost, it can that's my biggest fear. People are like, well, can you mark the item as, $5 on a $100 item? It's like, well, if it gets lost, I get $5 back. It doesn't pay for the cost of the item. So I usually mark it for whatever the cost of the item is to produce, and then that way it recovers my cost, and then I can ship them another one back, or whatever. So, but a lot of people in Europe, especially, they really want like, oh, please mark it as a gift.
Nah, that doesn't work here. That doesn't work in Germany. If you do that, I had that, then the customs is like come to our office because we don't believe the value on the customs form is accurate, So that is why I prefer the real price, and
right.
And also a second thing that happened in the last 5 years, which I don't understand. Many sellers from Kickstarter, Indiegogo, eBay used a shipping company, and they had an automatic address correction. And the automatic address correction had a problem that to my postal code it attached 2 cities because it thought one city is a state. So that means when an address has 2 cities, that the parcel has to go through the address correction procedure, and that means a delay of 4 weeks for the delivery of the parcel.
Wow, that's not good.
So as I'm just explaining, some problems are like oh my God, and then I emailed this processing company and said like, hey, on my next order from you, can you please fix your system? And they were emailing me back like, you need a customer number and so on. I'm like, no, I'm not the guy who's shipping. I'm the customer who's receiving. And
sure.
And why don't you take my report of your bug? So in the last 5 years, I had so many problems. I just wanted to share that it's really weird. And of course, well, then you say, how is it with other countries? When I tried with people from Japan, they reply like, I can't do it. Please cancel your order. I'm like, oh, thank you. That's nice.
Yeah, Japan is real picky about that. I've had some orders canceled myself going to the U.S. from Japan.
Just as a German, it's really hard. So I hope you will get it worked out, because I don't want to have problems because of my keycaps.
Right. Yeah. So that's, like I said, the logistics for all of the keycaps being sent from outside the U.S. will be sent directly from China directly to each one of the backers. That way, I don't have to deal with our tariff for the biggest thing for me, and then that should also be a much quicker means in general to get the keycaps to the backers if they're individually shipped from the factory. Because otherwise, they're going to have to be shipped to me, repackaged, and all that stuff, and then shipped back out. The only thing that I kind of worry about is during this whole campaign, I've got pretty good sources in China that can do translation and stuff, but it's still kind of iffy sometimes on translation about what you want. And so I don't want, say for example, you ordered 2 different keycap sets with 4 different colors. I don't want you getting the wrong colors, or 3 of the 4 are right, So that's going to be something that's going to have to be really closely monitored with those people when they're doing the shipping to make sure the right keycaps are going to the right people. And so that's my only concern about that whole thing. But, I can have the same problem here, too, for the U.S. guys, It's a lot of keyboard. I mean, you looked at, but there's, I figured this out the other day. Let me see how much it is. Well, I'm getting 3,000 sets made, because that covers the entire batch plus 100 and some left over. So it's 198,000 pieces of plastic they're going to be shipping.
Wow.
Producing. So it's a lot of plastic to make sure that it's all put together in the correct color of the bag. I don't want people to get 2 A keys or 2 C keys or something like that as well. So the sets have got to be correct. So it's quite a bit of work actually to on the back side of this to make sure everything gets bagged correctly. So I posted a couple other pictures to you. One is one of the smaller sets of machines for the factory in China, and you can see a little person down there and how big those machines really are that they use. And also, there's a picture of the rendering of the clear keycap or clear keyboard base as well. So, a couple things you're welcome to share.
I see that. Yeah. I'll save these images and we'll put them in the. I guess we'll do this as a video podcast, and we'll put these images in as we do this.
Sure. There's one thing that I want to tackle. I mean, you said at the beginning, there are people that are worried about you and doing the second keycaps, but there are also other people who are generally speaking badly about new projects. I mean, if you type in your name, you also find some negative responses, like don't give Jim True some money and so on. And well, I just wanted to know your perspective about it.
You're not limited to this. There are products that, like, I've got the Wi-Fi modem that you designed on my Amiga 500. There are plenty of things. So
yeah, it's not like I've never made anything or picked anybody's money and not provided something. That's
right.
Yeah, in fact, I was my big fear. I got daylight shining through my blinds right now. Sorry, guys.
That's okay.
I've never had ever a case where I took anybody's money for anything ever. But my big fear was this. And so you can chat with the guys behind the scenes like Eric Hill and Dan Toodle and stuff that know about what was going on behind the scenes. But the original Keycap campaign from Indigogo, I contacted that guy and I said, hey, I would like to pick up your Keycap campaign from you. I would like to buy whatever you've got. I would like to, get your backer list and all that stuff, and then let us go and finish this thing. And he sent me the scathing response about the whole thing, that it was coming out and wasting my time, blah, 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 blah. The very next day was the last update to his Indiegogo campaign saying that he's going to be getting it done, blah, blah, blah. I think that was in April. And so when that happened, I told Dan and Eric, I said, look, this is a response that I got. It was right after I just sent this email to him. I said, this guy's being a jerk about this, so I'm going to go ahead and proceed this and doing it. That's when I started looking into it. So it was April to December is how long I actually spent going through the whole process of trying to recreate the keycaps and finding factories and all this stuff I spent. So it wasn't like I spent 2 days to go rip people off. It was a lot of my time that I spent doing this. And the only reason I did a campaign, the only reason was I was concerned that this guy would actually come through, and then I would have spent all my personal money on molds and stuff, and people wouldn't need them. They would just go ahead and use his factory, or use his campaigns. They would get the keycaps.
Right.
And so I don't want to go and spend $40,000-$50,000 of my own money and not have the kind of a guarantee that it was, not going to get replaced. And so that's the only reason why I did a campaign, was to make sure that I wouldn't have to actually pay for it, just in case this clown decided to go ahead and do it.
Well, I mean, the problem is with the retro scene, there are always fights in a way. I mean, HA can remember when we made our step onto the Amiga. That turned into a disaster in a way, And I see on the screen you have this moving bouncy. Well, I don't know, bouncing ball, Amiga bouncing ball. So you probably know what I'm talking about,
Yeah. Well, I spent, I developed a lot of products for the Amiga, so it wasn't like I've not developed anything for Commodore stuff. Like I said, I did probably 60 different things for 64. I made the implant board for the Amiga, which was the Macintosh simulation, which everyone said was impossible to do. Full color Macintosh. I did that. I did a Pentium emulation. I did all the different SuperCard series for the Amiga, Sybil, all kinds of internal hardware. I mean, so I did a lot of stuff for the Amiga, and I did a lot of stuff for 64. So, so all my products are good. And that's one thing about, I think, in the community, you see negative stuff about me, that's fine, because there's really nothing to back it. Because they can't say, well, this product sucked and this product did this. Everything I've ever produced was great. I mean, I know that because I would not release something unless it was something I would use myself. And that's how I actually get a lot of my products, is I need something myself, and so I make it. And then somebody says, hey, I want that too.
Right.
That's how the retro thing has been. That's why there's a Y modem 232 for your Amiga, because I made one for the 64 because I wanted one. And then people saw it for 64, and then the Amiga people asked me, hey, can you make one for the Amiga? And I was like, well, I can make one that works with everything. And the Amiga is on RS-232. And so that's how that came to be. It wasn't something that I needed for the Amiga. I needed one for my 64.
At least you are aware. You are aware of what's
happening. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and a lot of times I do it on purpose. I mean, all the commotion and the chaos. Oh, that's not an accident, people. It's funny is that they call it guerrilla marketing. And as long as you have a good product, you can get away with doing it. If you release crap, you're going to get burned. That's what's going to happen. But yeah, I'll cause chaos on purpose online just because it gets my name out there and gets the product out there.
I mean, if you look at the keycap thing, I mean, there are people, big names, who still say this guy will come out with his keycaps. For example, Jens Schoenfeld. He told me
2015 campaign. I think. Was it 2015 you released the campaign?
Yeah, 2015, yeah. 5 years ago.
We're looking at, yeah. It's a while.
I've waited 5 years for Equinox to release the new product. That's not a problem. I don't have a problem to wait, but as I said before, there are no updates. Right. There are no updates. So and still.
Yeah, that's one thing I wanted to make sure. With my campaign, I want to make sure that everybody was updated all the time to figure out what's going on. I mean, there's not much I can do about the situation with COVID, that affects the entire planet. But, nothing else, tell people, hey, this is what I'm doing, where we're at. We're still waiting. Nothing I can do. And then finally, I just got tired of waiting. And I can see the writing on the wall with this company. They're not going to change their attitude on what they're making. So I had to find another avenue to get it done. And then of course this tax reason why that was a big reason for me as well. So I don't have to pay for income tax on something that is going to be completely gone. All money spent makes no sense.
I still wonder. I mean, number one reason that was told in the updates for the original keycaps was that he made a 30,000 loss of euros in this campaign. And I think is this kind of bad managing? I mean, if you are doing a project like you said, you should plan ahead what kind of cooperation you need, what kind of budget you need and stuff. And I really wonder how can be a Indiegogo a disaster like that to make a minus of 30,000 euros.
I don't know. You obviously not in business before or something. There's a lot of things that's why I spent, from April to December when I launched the campaign, going through everything I needed to figure out what to do with it. And it's not like I'm not done business before. I mean, I've had business for a long time since, Utilities Limited was 1985. I mean, so it's like I've been doing business a long time. You can't always determine what's going to happen when you're subjected to a supplier chain. If you're relying on somebody to give you something, that's something you really can't control. But what you can control is having the foresight to have backup plans for different suppliers.
Yes.
And different avenues. And so it's funny. I've been frustrated. I've been talking with all my friends that are the Commodore community, and we meet every Friday night to chat on Discord. So the whole big group of us that do video chat for literally 8 hours every Friday night, so wee hours in the morning. And we talk about this campaign all the time and all the issues. And I wish, because of COVID, if we'd known, obviously, in advance of COVID, I would have done things a lot differently. And we were kind of chatting and laughing about the fact that this guy with the Indiegogo was going to print all of these keycaps himself. And so for me, that would be 198,000 keycaps to print. Well, not quite that many. You don't print the space bar, but the majority of the keycaps you do print, and you got to print the tops as well as the faces. And that's all hands-on. You have to have somebody literally, put the keycaps on a fixture and, turn them upside down or up or whatever you're going to do the printing for the face part of it. And that's a lot of work to do it. But I thought, since COVID, I could have done all that already,
Right. Yeah.
So I can just walk through the office and then, put the keycaps in, hit the print button, and, and then periodically do that all the time. I could have printed all the keycaps by now. But, hopefully this will all go away, COVID-wise, and we'll go back our lives back to normal. But, it's kind of frustrating for me because I expected already to have a keyboard out and all these different things out already. And, I got them all designed and done, ready for production, but, I'm not going to produce a keyboard I can't use. No keycap makes no sense. And, and from a business standpoint, it wouldn't make sense until you physically had them in your hand either to do it, because you never know. You're subjected to supplier chain issues, and
right.
I have that same problem in the UAV industry as well. That's why I try to make as much stuff ourselves in-house for everything we can,
right,
instead of relying on other people to do it. But I can't make capacitors and resistors and electronic parts, and so you're stuck waiting on suppliers. And that's about the bottom line. So all you can do is have enough foresight, to try to plan ahead and hope the best, really.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope this interview helps to get the critics softened. You know.
I hope they stay being critics. It's that bad word of mouth. It's like Henry Ford, our automobile manufacturer, said, "I don't care what you say about me, just spell my name right." But I have enough good stuff in the industry anyway. With decades, literally, of products being developed and sold and used by hundreds of thousands of people. But I've got a good name, so I'm not worried about that. Everything I produce is good quality.
Well, and a lot of the bad stuff, doesn't have anything to do with even if some of the bad stuff was true, it doesn't have anything to do with the retro stuff that you're doing currently. So, so it shouldn't have any impact on that at all.
Yeah, people can think what they want, so it doesn't matter to me. I sleep good at night. That's a good thing.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, you're never going to find any place anywhere that talks about me taking anybody's money though and not delivering something.
No.
To me, that's so taboo. It's not even funny.
Mm-hmm. True. I mean, that would be a whole other story. For example, Maurice Rendell. That was quite a character.
Oh Lordy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, with the super CPU and all those things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's been 20 years, and some people are still waiting for their delivery.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. So I would. That's to me. That's way past the line. I can't even fathom doing business that way and sleeping at night.
Yeah.
I think in the U.S. we call it haters want to hate. So a lot of people don't like me for the things I've been able to accomplish, and it's like when I announce something, it's usually pretty far fetched. I have to admit, but I know that I can pull it off, and that's the only reason why I would do it. So I've never announced anything or done anything that hasn't come to fruition. Really, things take a long time sometimes, and I think one of the problems that people get confused with the stuff that I do is that I'll make an announcement of what I'm working on, and people seem to think that it's available today.
Right.
And I kind of get stuck in that whole genre of people that believe that if you're announcing something, it's available. And I like to announce what I'm working on. And there needs to be a distinction between that. And I think that gets blended into somebody's imagination that today it's available, and then no, he couldn't produce it, because then that's where the whole bad thing happened, where you couldn't make it, blah blah blah. Like people, I'm not even announced it's available yet. I announced that I'm working on it. 5 years ago, whatever. Like there's a product called MicroDrive that I've been tinkering with for 5 years, literally, and it's something that I've talked about and I'm in progress on it. But there's been no availability for it, and I really don't like release dates for anything ever, because you never know what's going to happen with something. Big piece of hardware, and suddenly that CPU is no longer made. So what are you going to do?
Right.
That's part of the foresight thing, where you look at long-term availability of parts, things like that, to make sure somebody's going to be available.
Yeah. Yeah, I also want to point out too that as far as quality of the stuff that you do create, and I'm working off of I believe that the only thing that I have, because I don't, you do stuff for like the is it the Mister?
Yeah, I make it. I make it for the DE10 board, actually. It's not for Mister per se, but it's for the DE10 expansion.
Right.
So
I don't have that sort of thing, so I'm working mostly off of like the Y modem that you did, which is a fantastic piece of hardware. I've got it on this, like I said, I've got it on the Amiga. But aside from that, is just documentation. Like your documentation is this is all Y modem. Like this entire section of this is that. Like there is, there is a wealth of information on how it works, and like far beyond a lot of places or a lot of manufacturers do these things.
because the Wi-Fi modem is kind of a lot of different people make, and so like a lot of it is just like you plug it in. Here's your commands. Here's how you connect to a board. That's the end of it. Whereas you really do kind of go into the background of how it works and why it works, and you know there's pictures and there's diagrams and there's things to explain, you know, which I like because it goes above and beyond what a lot of places do.
Yeah, my documentation to me is really important, and one of the things I learned a long time ago is that documentation changes constantly.
Yes, right.
And so one of the things that I actually got scrutinized for back in the day was I had on disk documentation for a lot of stuff because printing documentation over and over and over again was expensive, and you throw away documentation. And I was changing things frequently. And you notice with the Y mode, in fact, if you didn't notice today, there's an update today.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, I update the firmware all the time.
Oh, yeah, I have noticed that. Yes, that's another cool thing.
Why I update the firmware is not to fix anything, really. I haven't fixed, I don't think, hardly anything at all. That's 5 years old now, that product. I keep adding features. So I was presented at Kansas Fest for their online virtual event in August or July, and the people were using it there, and I'm on Discord a lot, and just so happens 2 days ago or a day and a half ago, a guy on Kansas Fest through the Discord said, "Can I do a feature request?" And I said, "Sure, what do you want?" And so he told me what he wanted, and so I implemented it last night and sent out the update to everybody. So he pushed the update. And so the documentation will get updated as well, and it's a PDF file, as you know.
Yes.
So it makes it much easier to make instant updates available this way, where you can actually have an updated documentation and such. And having a printed document means that you're stuck in the past already, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
If you're not moving forward with products, then I don't think the product's really, unless it's something that's set in stone and never going to change for any reason whatsoever. I think it's a mistake to have a printed document for something, that you have the ability to, progress your product and progress the documentation. And for me personally, I mean, I spent, since '77 working on computers, so I've seen the transition from the command line interface to graphical interfaces. And the reality is that the general public, they like the Mac for one reason, the iPads and the iPhones for one reason. It's all intuitive, it's graphical. And so for me, everything that I use today, I want to make sure that people have a visual representation of what's going on. So diagrams and charts and things like this are very important for people. It's a lot faster to look at a picture and know, here's where the jumper pads are, than to read some lines. Okay, located between this location and this location are the pads you're going to find. To me, that works, and that's worked in the past forever. But to me, it's unnecessary today. It's a lot easier for the user to look at a picture or a diagram and go, okay, I get it. It's hard. It still happens with customer support where they don't understand it, but it's a lot easier on customer support too. And a lot of companies probably don't understand that. Apple does for sure. The more visual you can be, the easier it is in your tech support.
Yeah.
And then for the quality of my products, I offer a lifetime warranty on everything I make. So that's it. You can go plug it in backwards and try to burn it up or whatever. And I designed the product so that people can burn things up, or try to burn things up, and they don't get burned up. So I've consumer-proofed as much as I can for all my products. So
this is the newest firmware is 320.
What's that?
The newest firmware is 320.
321.
321. Oh, I see. I've got the manual for 320. I got it.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to post the manual for 321 right now.
Okay, because I like to keep my manuals printed in a book. So
well, you can print a couple of extra pages, or a page to replace it. What I did was a pretty simple change. You're familiar with having to enable telnet mode or not telnet mode, when you're connecting. So one person made a good suggestion. I thought it made sense, so that's why I added it. Now you have, currently with the person you have to enter in an AT*T1 to enable telnet mode.
Yes.
And then if you want to connect to a VBS that can't use Telnet, you got to turn it off. So you're going back and forth between on and off all the time. So what I did is I made it now so you can actually enter that ATDT for dialing with an asterisk T0 comma or an asterisk T1 comma and then the URL and the port. And that way it will actually do it for that particular call you're doing, that connection. It will override whatever it is. So it made it easier for this guy because he's got like 4 different BBS he contacts that are Telnet only, and the rest are not. So in his phone book, he just made those entries with T1, and that way he doesn't have to go switching it back and forth all the time and forgetting. That's the biggest problem: you forget which one needs what.
Yes.
That's very simple fix for it. So
yeah. But I don't know if anyone.
Well, if you got a feature request out there, people, let me know because I don't mind adding things.
I will say that there you might want to. I don't know if it's in the documentation because I haven't looked through it in a bit, but I did notice that when I started using it on the Amiga would the modem was moving faster than the Amiga could keep up with, which is a common issue with older machines and whatnot. And
no flow control.
Right. And I did discover that the Baud Bandit driver works way better with it than the stock Amiga driver.
Right. Yeah, that's a problem with the Amiga in general with that the serial device.
Yes.
Yeah, it only handles a maximum of 57.6.
Yeah.
And it also depends on how many colors you've got because it's DMA restricted. Right. So yeah, there's a lot of issues. So Baud Bandit device, and then there's a new one too that's like Oxer device, I think is what it's called, and it also works actually better than Baud Bandit. Yeah, if you check out AmiNet, it's on AmiNet. There's a replacement for the serial.
AmiNet, yeah, I do know that. What's the software called?
I think it's called Auxser, AUXSER.device. That's one of them I had looked at. There's a couple different ones, but I found it on AmiNet. So go search AmiNet for a serial device replacement, and there's a couple with Baud Bandits on there. There's a couple other ones on there.
Okay.
And there's actually a source code for one too. I think that's the one that was the new one because they actually added some features for supporting the 060 and things like that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's the one thing that I had to. That was the Wi-Fi thing that I had to figure out because that happens with the 64 too with the Wi-Fi modems. Is that it just especially at like 80 column, it just cannot keep up with going at high speed.
Right. Yep. Yeah, you got to turn on your flow control for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the same thing happens with the Atari ST and the TRS-80s. I mean, all the computers that the Y modem works with. So, I've had this crash course on the TRS-80, the Atari ST, and other computers that I never worked on really before to determine, okay, what's the problem here? Let's see, the fortunate and unfortunate, what happens when you support other computers. It's great you got the market, but you have to learn it at that point, So now I'm an owner of an ST, a TRS-80, Atari 400 or 800, and all the different little computers I had to pick up just to make sure that it was compatible, with all these things. Different little quirks.
Yeah, you keep finding new. You accumulate things as you do this. I've learned.
Yeah, it's so I got back into the retro computing thing. I had a lot of stuff before. I mean, I had an entire storage unit full of stuff before, and then now I picked up even more. So I have I'm in the disk copying thing because of SuperCard 64 for the Amiga, and now the SuperCard Pro, the Flux copier, which I've had for 8 years now, almost 9 years. But I have 50,000 original discs here, literally.
Yeah.
So I have 30,000 5.25 and about 20,000 3.5. And most of the 5.25 are all Commodore 64, and then almost all of the 3.5 are Amiga. So, but I had almost all of that before I got back into retro computing. I just kept it all and just put it in storage.
Right.
So,
which is a good thing to do. If you look
I
nowadays,
wish I had done that.
Yeah. If you look,
I wish I would have kept boxed things. I wish I would have kept all the Mega 65s that I got my hands on back in the day. A lot of things you knew.
Yeah,
right.
If you look at what things on eBay cost or other places sometimes,
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's amazing that some things held their value really well and other things didn't hold their value at all.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm still happy.
Like the price of hardware.
I'm still happy that I saved half a year of pocket money and Christmas and birthday money in '98 for the Super CPU. That's something I'm very happy for.
I'm waiting. It's got to come out. Someone has to come out with because I mean they've done the CMD hard drive clones. They've got the the RU clones they've come out with. We're missing everything except the Super CPU. Someone's got to do it.
Jim Brain has been working on that, trying to reverse engineer some of the PALs and stuff that are in the Super CPU. And for that, so I have an accelerator that'll be out. I think Jim Brain's doing an accelerator as well. At the World of Commodore event that happened over the weekend, I made a video. I announced the stuff that I'm actually working on right now. And one of the things is called a Super Cart 2. I did a Super cartridge originally for the 64 back in the day, and it was a cartridge that had 512K of programming on it, and the bank switch programs in and out with all kinds of utilities and stuff. I thought, I call it the same thing, basically Super Cart 2. And it is actually a lot different. So I've got a prototype actually. So it's I started out as a diagnostics cartridge for the 64, a true dead cartridge where you plug it in, it would bypass the CPU and go take a look at the memory map and figure out if the ROMs work, the RAM works, the BIC works, all that stuff. And I thought, well, to do that, you got to take over the bus, much like the Super CPU did, and other things that do that, like the Ultimate 2 Plus and all that.
Right.
And so I thought, well, I'm taking over the bus anyway. I can put on 16 megs of RAM and do an RU. And I thought, well, I can do a CPU emulation as well, so I can do a 4 or 8 megahertz simulation of a CPU. So there's a lot of things that I've been able to do with it. It also has my Y modem built into it as well, but with a twist. It's got Swift link support, which is 38.4 baud, but I also have direct access to it. So I can actually do a megabaud. I can fill the memory of the 64 almost 3 times per second off of the server. So it's pretty fast. So if you did you guys look at the World of Commodore event at all?
Not me.
I did not. I did not see that one.
Okay, well, I can give you a link to a YouTube video that did a presentation of it.
Oh, yes, please. Oh, yes, please.
Yes. And if you feel like sending review copies over.
I have prototypes. These are coming out for next year, but like my C64 is done, the new one. It's called an ISCS 64. You know about that?
But no, I don't.
Let me tell you what I introduced at the World Commodore Show. I have an ICS 64, which is a Commodore 64 motherboard, kind of like you've seen the 60 clone.
Right. Yes.
This is a lot different. This is, I based it on the layout and design of how the KU board is as far as components, sort of. I moved things around from that even. But it's got a microcontroller on the backside of the board, and it gives you the ability to do ROM switching using the restore key. On resetting the computer using the restore key, it'll drive a RGB LED strip or a panel. It shows your voltage. It drives an OLED screen. You have to put in your 64. It shows your voltage of your computer, state of the XROM line, the IRQ, all kinds of things. But the ROM switching is something that I wanted. So that's why I built it. So we built by a bare board with the SMT parts. Oh, it's also got a incredible video display output compared to the soft modulator. And it also has the ability to run stereo SID out easily. It's got a pad where you can solder your second stereo SID line to it, and then there's a convenient little plug. You can get both your left and right channels out. Makes it really easy. So let me figure out where my video is.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
There's actually a second thing people never made replacements of: disk drives.
Oh.
Right. Well, that's what my microdrive is. So the microdrive that I have been tinkering with for the last 5 years, it started out as a 1541 replacement. Are you familiar with Pi 1541?
Yes.
Okay, so it's just like that. the exact same thing a Pipe 1541 is for the 1541 emulation, but the size of your thumbnail, the tiny little thing. And so my plan was for it is to use it internally in your computer. I don't want to have it be external. I want it internal. And you basically have an SD card full of games.
So like the Ultimate 1541 computer, the Ultimate 64 that has the ROM emulator inside.
What do you mean? My motherboard? You mean?
I mean, you said you want to have this thumbnail-sized drive emulator inside the computer.
Yeah, that's it. It's a disk drive inside your 64.
Exactly. And I wonder, isn't the Ultimate 64 the computer by Gideon Schweitzer similar to that?
Yeah, it's similar to that as well. Same kind of emulation for it. But I focused on G64 so I could load copy-protected disks, the images, which is what my thing was. Also the fact that the microdrive uses about 60 milliamps of current. So you can drive it with 64, no problem. Where like on a Pi 1541, that requires a 1.5 or 2 amp power supply. So there's no way to run that internally in your 64.
True.
So I want something with low power. I've got SX64 as well. I wanted to have a second drive in it as a microdrive. And so I have an SX64 with a TFT display instead of the regular monitor and all these little things in it. I wanted to have that capability for it. So that's something that I've been working with for like literally 5 years on it. But it's not done. It's the only thing to finish on that, ironically enough. So people that know me know that I'm an assembly programmer. I program in assembly for everything. Mm-hmm. Still to this day, all the flight control systems we do for UAVs is all done in assembly. Everything is done in assembly. The only thing I've ever done in my entire life in C is the Y modem, actually. And it's partly in assembly as well, but mostly it's in C code. And so the microdrive is all done in assembly as well. And so it's cycle accurate. And so you'll learn, I posted this link to this video. So I have that. I have this thing called the Retro Repair Station, which is a prototype. And what this is a tester. It's an oscilloscope and chip tester and all kinds of stuff for diagnosing problems with your 64 or any other computer. Mm-hmm. And then another thing that I'm releasing is this, called the XIA. And this is a replacement for basically every peripheral interface chip that Commodore made. So a 6522, a 6526, the 6530 used in the old PET drive and CDTV and stuff, and the 6525 used in Magic Voice. And so basically it'll emulate, I think, 11 different Commodore chips from back in the day.
Wow.
And they were also used in arcade. So because people, it's hard to find 6526s.
Yes. Yeah, it is.
So this replaces your 6526. You just pop this in and now it's just
yeah, because there's one of them. I think the one that is in the version that's in the 1541. It's the
6522 is on the 1541.
Yes.
And you use 8520.
They're pretty common because I think Rockwell still makes them.
Right. But the 26s they don't, and the 8520 the Amiga they don't.
Right, and I think there's one whatever is in the +4 and stuff like that. None of those things you can find.
Right, none of those are made, so you can emulate all those different chips with this device.
And there was also one in the whatever they used in the 65, the C65. They only made like 10 of those chips in total.
I'm not sure what they used. I've not looked at that computer actually, other than I looked at they've got large custom chips that like Dave Haney and those guys make up and stuff.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure what for 40-pin chips are actually used. I should take a look at that and see.
Yeah, and I think that the Mega, the Museum of whatever that's doing the Mega 65, they've been reverse engineering most of these chips. So they're making it open source, so anyone can go and find that information. So that could be an option too to make the it's. I think they're probably the not the that kind of chip. My brain can't think of what the term is for the square ones.
PLCC style.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is a 40-pin replacement, which is
Right.
the most common package for all the Commodore stuff. So the 6522, the 26. They've got a TPI and a PIA and all the different chips that so basically, it's that's it, man. It's not that complicated, and I don't use an FPGA for doing it. I don't need to for this particular application. So it ends up being a lot less, expensive and because FPGAs are expensive.
Yeah, I love that. That's actually.
So
that's one of those things that like you think that's one of those things when you're fixing something and it's like I wish there was something that I could just that would be universal for this, and it's like that's it.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about this. You'll see in the video. Basically, there's an LED and there's a push button on here. If you can, the camera won't focus probably, but you can actually program what chip it emulates, and you can switch whatever you want to. So if you don't use it for a 6522 anymore and you need it for 64, you can pull it out, hop in your 64, and program it to be a 6526, and now you're done.
Amazing.
That is
amazing.
Awesome.
So
that
we learned
awesome.
a lot more today than just about keycaps.
Yes.
Yeah, take a look at the link of the presentation for World of Commodore. Basically, it's a video, and it shows what's coming out. The ICS64 that's shown, I have boards now. So I'll be able to offer that before the end of the year, and then the other products will be out in 2021.
Cool. I am looking at them. I've got the video right in front of me. I'm looking at it. We can. We'll link to that in the podcast description and probably play some of it over this whilst we're talking. But there probably won't be any audio for it. But it'll be something that people can see. So yeah, I now have like 4 things that I need to get in the coming year.
Yeah, and these are all things that I made for me.
And a second shop to afford this all, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, like I said, copy, PO Box 464.
Yeah, it's funny. It's a running joke with our CRX crew that they always tell me that they're going to send me the bill for everything that I make because it costs them too much. So you guys don't do following all these different events apparently. So the World Commodore event just happened. And that's the event that happens every year in Toronto. It's sponsored by the TPUG group, which is the Toronto Pet User Group. Great guys that are there. So that's where I did this presentation. And then every year, I host the largest Commodore event in probably the world, definitely in the U.S. It's called CRX, which is the Commodore Retro Expo. And it's a 3-day long event, normally live. And it's a 3-day long event virtually this year. And if you go to crxevent.com, you can take a look and see what we've done. But so for this year's virtual event, we had chiptune artists, like famous people, like not just like off the street people, but real famous people.
Right.
So, is a guy that is a DJ in Las Vegas. He's actually world renowned. He is buddies with all these chiptune artists. And so he actually put together a program called Bitscape, and that's pretty amazing. So if you look on YouTube, you'll find the CRX event, and we have all 3 days that were live streamed onto that, and so you can check out what we do during that event. And our event typically is in late August, and live in Las Vegas, Nevada. So I don't know if we'll have an event this year. We're all hoping to have a live event again this year.
Or virtual. Because actually, we did games, we did events when possible. It's just a lot of times the travel gets in the way, or real life, or work, or whatever. But
so I think because of the success of the virtual events, we'll probably have some kind of virtual component of the live event as well, like a simulcast of what's going on. That way, people all over the world can see it. Because obviously, we had people this time. Obviously in Germany and Austria and Netherlands and everyone that had checked in, where they're from. So we had a lot of people, obviously, that would never normally go to the event.
Right.
But we do have a lot of people from all over the world that do fly in for the event because it's that popular. We've had Quanto guy, Mike Bastiano from Quanto come in, and we had the guys that did the Commodore Story Kickstarter project. They came in and our live events and stuff. So we do get a lot of good, really great guest speakers, and so it's a fun event. So I think you guys should check out too. But check out the video for it. It's a lot of fun, but it's 3 days of chaos, Commodore chaos for sure.
I mean, there are some events we cover, right? But I don't remember the name of the American events. But there is this in this show, AJ, that you went to a couple of times in the past.
Well, yeah, I went to a video game con, but that wasn't the.
But there was a different one. Yeah.
Vintage Computer Festival as well. The VCF.
Vintage Computer Festival, right? That was.
VCF is a good event too. They have several different ones, different locations. To the east and the west and all that. So
even in Germany, Vienna and stuff, right?
Yeah, we need to get more into these. We need to get a travel budget, Jörg.
There you go.
Go to all these.
we need.
We can. If we can swing Las Vegas, that's the cheapest place in the world to have a conference. The flights are cheap into Vegas, hotels are cheap, and we have a facility there. It's a huge ballroom at one of the casinos. So we have 7,500 square feet of space for, I'm not sure what that works out in meters view, but it's a big space for our event. And it's basically it's catered, and it's a great event. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. And, we have pajama night where everybody comes in their pajamas and they're just programming. And so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I just need to get there from New Jersey.
It's a quick flight.
Yeah.
Nice. So, well, that's probably something. Now we spoke for a lot longer than originally planned.
Yeah.
But hey, nice. We covered a lot. I'm very happy for that. Actually, about the floppy thing. What I originally was meaning was not a floppy emulator, but was a physical replacement of the 1541.
Yeah, he wants an actual floppy drive to be replaced, because that's the one thing that no one's done. Because
that is what I want.
They've gone out of style.
Because I prefer the original discs. I in the last 20 years, I always made sure that I have 1,000 empty discs in my cupboard.
Now I feel as if that there have been enough floppy drive mechanisms created that will probably never run out. What we need, what would be useful, is an adapter that would let you take like a regular PC disc drive mechanism and plug it into the 1541 and use that instead of the 1541 mechanism, which is a very custom sort of mechanism.
Well, the drive itself has electronics in the drive. It's a full computer.
I know.
And you have to replace higher brain to do it. So, ironically enough, my SuperCard Pro board, I actually have that built into it. I just I haven't done the firmware for it. So, literally, there's an IEC port on my board. This is the SuperCard Pro board. So, there's a little connector over here. That's an IEC port. So, I can actually plug this into Commodore 64 and make it with a real floppy drive, connected to a cable to read this that way. I just have never done the firmware for it. There's not been too much of an interest in it, really. There might be in the future as more and more drives die. But I think the reality is that there were 17 million computers sold, and there were 30-some million disk drives made.
Right.
So there's probably lots of disk drives still at work, and I guess why there's not been that much interest in it.
Well, I do, because I'm a floppy disk fighter.
Yeah, he's very interested in that.
I am. I would buy 10 of those drives if they were coming out tomorrow. That's for certain.
Yeah, floppy drives are available, and you can buy them on eBay. They're kind of expensive though.
They are.
Yeah. That's what some of my customers have been giving me feedback, buying a 5.25-inch disk drive so they can copy, copy the software.
Yeah.
The drives are kind of expensive. They're like $50 to $100 just for the drive mechanics part alone.
Yeah. And the 3.5-inch drives, they're a little bit easier, because even though even though the Amiga and the 64 or the 1581 rather used a very specific version of it. There is a they do make, and this is by a seller from, I'm not entirely sure where this seller is from, but it's an adapter that lets you plug just a regular old PC 3.5-inch drive into your Amiga. And presumably that might also work with the 1581 because it's basically doing the same thing, but with the 5.5-inch or 5.25-inch, I'm sorry, the 5.25-inch, there's nothing like that. There's no adapter for that. It's what the 1541 is what the 1541 is.
Right. Yeah. So the 1541 is just a raw mechanical drive, and then it has an analog head that goes into the circuitry on the board. That analog circuitry goes and converts it into bit stream for GCR, and that becomes a computer in that drive. It literally 6502 and 26522s, and it actually has as much hardware as the 64 does.
It's basically just another computer networking. It's exactly
what it is.
Yeah, I've got
a PC floppy drive. They have all the electronics built into the drive itself, and the interface is basically a pulse, and the pulse is the bit stream that comes out of it.
Right. So. Yeah, I always considered, like, I've got my stack back there of the 1541 and the enhancer and the 81 and whatnot, and plus the 64. That's basically 4 computers networked together through a serial interface.
I see. So this episode is like a lesson about Amiga and C64 hardware.
Yes,
basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so happy. Yeah, I'm so happy, Jim, that you were so open about the questions I had.
Yeah, no worries.
It's good. I mean, I was pestering long enough for this interview. Right. All right. So, is there anything else we should ask or add? I don't know.
I don't know.
Silence.
Any other awesome things coming up that I need to buy?
It's funny. I've been getting ribbed by my guys. The reason why I have these particular products coming out are the ones that I've been tinkering for a while with, and I have a real habit, and it's pointed out actually at World of Commodore, and it's so true. So I need something, I'll develop it, and if I really need it myself, then it gets finished and done. If I need it just to see if I can do it, then it gets put in a box. I have a box that's huge, full of stuff that I've made prototypes of that I've never actually produced because it was more of a challenge to see if I could actually do it. And then once the challenge was over, it goes in the box. So all my friends are like, you need to take that box and open it up, and you need to pull the stuff out of it and let us figure out what really would work and what doesn't work for the general public and go that route. So I think there's 11 things that got picked out that will be actually worked on and finished up. The microdrive is one, probably the biggest one. And so what I was saying before, I'm an assembly programmer. So I write everything in assembly. I don't have a fat file system written in assembly that supports writing or long file names. So I did a very simple read short file names one, and that's what I've been using in microdrive, but I think it'd be a crime not to be able to have it writable for one. And then I think it'd be a crime also if I didn't have long file name support in it. So those are the 2 big things that are really holding up that product from getting released. It's been done literally, and I've demoed it for 5 years. So it's something that's time to, just to push it over the edge and get that stuff done. And at that point, so the microdrive actually has evolved from the 1541. So it was called Micro 1541 originally. Now it's called microdrive because it's a micro disk drive emulator and also hardware emulator. So I have HD or CMD HD2040 support for it. So it'll emulate the hard drive. It'll emulate a handy disk drive 1 or disk drive 2, a little portable drive. It'll emulate a tape drive. It'll emulate Atari 810 disk drive, 1010 disk drive, all the different kinds of disk drives for different computer systems. It will emulate. And so I have all that stuff done already. All that stuff works. So once I get this file system all ironed out, then I can actually release it. And it's a big market because it's all different types of computers that can use it, not just the 64.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's one of many things. Like
that's the sort of thing
Pardon?
Yeah, that's the sort of thing I see. You've got a YouTube channel that I
I don't really use it at all either. I'm not a big social media guy at all. I don't use Facebook really, and I don't use YouTube so much. I post things when I need to, but I have a forum.
Yeah, but I was just thinking that going through like those boxes and like getting like a demo and an explanation of how these things work, even if they're just prototypes that will never see the light of day, is something that that would be really interesting to see. Like, I would love to watch that.
Oh, maybe I'll do that then. I didn't think you may be interested.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would be interested in seeing that kind of stuff. Even non Commodore stuff, like you said, you had Atari stuff and whatnot.
Yeah.
That stuff. But just seeing how that, like this was.
I have literally this box contains stuff from 1983.
Yeah.
I mean, all the way up until now. So I have dozens of products that never got released that were worked on. With a lot of stuff for the Amiga that I would never release, but I worked on prototypes, lots of prototypes. Hand wrap stuff all the way up to S&T stuff now.
Yeah, I think that would be fascinating to have that, especially for documentation purposes. Because eventually at some point this stuff may disappear, or something might happen to it, and it's not something that can be ever explored again. So to have it as a video or as a even an article or something, like a written blog thing, explaining how it works, how you did it and stuff. I think that would be awesome to see.
Okay, well, I'll consider it then. I've got a lot of stuff for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was amazed. My wife looked at this stuff and she's like, "You did all of this stuff?" Like, yeah, that's what I did. So people understand, it was my day job. That's what I did.
Right, yeah.
Decades. So it wasn't like I did it as a pastime or something. It was actually a job that I got paid every single day to go do.
Mm-hmm.
So, like the Commodore guy. So.
Right.
Yeah, it's one of the things that maybe I'll get around to doing that. It's interesting. I go through the stuff periodically. Like I took some stuff to CRX and did a thing on it, on a different little prototype I had done back in the day. And some of the stories that I remember doing that would be the reason why I want to do it, because there's all kinds of interesting stories, attached to one of the devices and what I was doing at the time and who I was competing with and things like that. Like the implant board, it's got a ton of stories about it too.
Wow.
There's a lot of products that I make because of I want them, and then there's some products that I make because of something went bad or a competition, kind of like the Keycap campaign. That happened because of the issue with this guy that sent the scathing letter to me saying that I could never do it and he's the man and blah blah blah. Like,
he's the man.
That's the worst thing you can do is try to challenge me at something. So I'm going to go do it at that point.
Right.
I'll say, I can be done, and here's why, and here's how. But yeah, you're right. I think it's probably a good idea to document some of the things that I've done.
Awesome.
I at least, you'd have at least one viewer, because I'd be fascinated by that stuff. I'm sure yours would be too.
Of course. I mean, we are doing these interviews and all this stuff and articles and preservation. I mean, you saw it since 20 years. So
yeah,
right, yeah. It's all about preserving the if not the actual hardware itself, the and learning about how it works and whatnot. And that's the sort of thing that we're seeing a lot of museums that have COVID. They're disappearing, and
right, yeah.
And it's a real fear that a lot of this stuff is going to be lost as these things close down.
My dad was museum director and curator for a long time, so I'm used to working with the museum and how preservation works. That's why I make the SuperCard series for backing up your software for preservation. So I actually have like the Library of Congress and a lot of universities and people like that use my products for backing up their stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I understand the preservation aspect for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. So before we let you go, Jim, where can people find your stuff? Is there any main spot?
Okay, well, www.cbmstuff.com. So that's CBM, like Commodore Business Machines, or something other initials if you want to use. .com. And then I have the YouTube channel, which I really don't do anything. I think we've got like 20 people have followed or something like that. I'm not loaded. I just post like documentation, like we're talking about. On YouTube, you'll find installation instructions for one of the products I make. And again, I'm a very visual person, so to me, doing a video of installation makes way more sense than trying to even doing a diagram, because especially there's little caveats you need to look for, or avoid if you're doing installation. So it's a good media for doing that. So the YouTube channel there, I have a Facebook thing, but I think there's 5 people on there, something like that. I don't know. I don't go on Facebook at all. Like I said, I'm not a social media kind of guy at all. I probably should be.
No, not in this current climate. You really don't want to be. I used to be a social media guy, and I'm not. I've been trying to stay away from it lately.
Yeah, I maybe not. I don't know. I'm just trying to stick to myself. I do have a forum, and that's linked off the website, and that's the easiest way to get a hold of me is through the forum or through email. Either way, so I'm not hard to find. I'm not hiding from anybody at all. So that's another thing that people can take some solace in with the Keycap campaign. They can email me right now, and they're going to get a response in a short period of time. So
I can confirm it worked well communicating with you.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. We will put links to everything in the podcast description below, and probably on the screen if people are looking at this.
Exactly.
So that they can check.
So see ya.
Bye,
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Be safe.